Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good afternoon and welcome into the Fantasy Roundup. Spencer the Guru Urquhart back at you here on a Tuesday afternoon, joined by Zach Ewing. Will be my co-host this afternoon with Gabe Henderson out, moving into a new apartment as we get going here on Tuesday. How's it going, Zach?
It's going good, man. I'm excited to talk some baseball. I haven't had a chance to do that too often yet this spring, but I got my first draft coming up Sunday, and then I think I have an auction and a draft the following Sunday. So I've been hitting the books hard here.
For sure, man. Yeah, we got a lot of fantasy baseball talk prepared for y'all. That's going to be the main focus of the show. We'll have a little bit of football talk as well with free agency hot and heavy. And speaking of that, we'll kick things off by going over some headlines. And as the headlines lately have been all about free agency, top headline there as far as I know a lot of y'all are interested in the Saints, and so the Saints made a move today, re-signing Michael Thomas. It appeared that Michael Thomas might be on his way out after the way they had restructured his contract with an essential poison pill, to where if they didn't do this re-sign for this season, and he would have been cut and would go on their separate ways. But they agreed to a new deal, so Mike Thomas stays in New Orleans. Have a few other moves to be made, and I see Jerry's joining us here. Good afternoon,
Jerry.
Yes, indeed. Jerry is one of our loyal listeners. Always appreciate him tuning in. The Giants acquired Darren Waller today. That was a shocking move because earlier in the day, the Raiders had signed Jacoby Myers in free agency to give Jimmy Garoppolo another weapon. So it appeared that Jimmy G would have a strong arsenal there with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. But I guess they couldn't afford to keep all of them because Darren Waller now on the move to the Giants. And then the big domino still hasn't fallen, y'all. Aaron Rodgers still undecided on his future, just continues to be a prima donna, the Dalai Lama, whatever you want to call him. Still undecided, but we may have gotten a hint today that the Jets thing might be real because Alan Lazard signed a deal with the Jets, a 4-year contract.
Yeah, and I mean I think there's like a report out there of an Aaron Rodgers wish list that included Alan Lazard
Right.
and OBJ, which is it's like I,
That was
I
bizarre.
mean it could work. I'm skeptical. But it will be entertaining. I know that. I got a question for you, Spencer, about the Giants and Darren Waller. I'm really starting to like that offense under Brian Dable. How high would you draft Daniel Jones next year? As far as I mean, is he in your top 10 quarterbacks, your top 8 quarterbacks? Where are you putting him?
Right. Yeah, I think Daniel Jones could definitely be top 10. I don't think I'll go quite top 8, but top 10 I think is realistic. I was doing my dynasty rankings already, and he's a QB1 there. I think I had him as QB11. But yeah, with the Waller addition, that's definitely a stock up because now he'll have Waller to go with a few decent receivers there. I mean, nothing great, but I mean, you've got Wan'Dale Robinson, the young guy who should be back off of injury. Sterling Shepard back, and then hopefully a free agent addition or two. Probably will bring back Richie James, who he had a good rapport with. Isaiah Hodgins, I think, still there. He was a restricted free agent, so they should bring him back. So really all they need is just one or two more free agent additions, and they'll have a nice arsenal there. And then, of course, Saquon in the backfield. So yeah, should be interesting. I see Tomcat here is ready for baseball. He said the WBC has been great.
You don't think about the WBC, like at least I don't, until it comes around. And then when it comes on, I'm like, damn, this is great. Like I'm going to watch this every night. And then you forget about it for 3 more years or whatever. I guess it's been 6 years since they had it because of COVID the last time they were supposed to have it. But it's good stuff, man.
100%. And then Tomcat and Daniel Jones, man, that's a hot take. Daniel Jones won't be top 15. Wow. I mean, he was top 15 this year with hardly any weapons. I don't see him taking a
I
step
just think,
back.
yeah, from a fantasy perspective, for me, his
Fake him.
rushing
No,
gives
come
him a
on, man.
floor,
Baker
right? Like he's gonna
Mayfield. No, no.
Daniel Jones will be top 15 just because he's going to rush for 600 yards or so. Like to me,
Right.
that's
Yeah, something like Baker Mayfield doesn't run at all. Like it's just, I mean, maybe as a rookie, Baker was better, but as they've progressed, Jones has progressed a lot better than Baker. But yeah, WBC hype. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I saw about the perfect game. I believe was it Puerto Rico that threw the perfect game against Israel? That was pretty crazy.
yeah, it's been fun.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, I want baseball. Let's get to baseball. We'll start things off. We got a few more positions to talk about. We with Gabe last week, we broke down all the infield positions, and Tomcats liking the new pitch clock. I know there's been kind of some mixed opinions on that, but he's saying he likes it. I guess before we get into the rankings, Zach, I know that's a hot topic. What are your early thoughts on the rule changes, specifically the pitch clock?
I'm all for the pitch clock. I'll be the first to tell you I haven't watched a ton of spring training, but I've talked to a couple people who went to a few minor league games last year, and said it makes a huge difference without you really realizing that it's even there, which to me is the sign of a great rule change. Like no one is going to be affected by, oh, this changes the way I watch the game. But then when it's the ninth inning, you look down at your watch and it's only 2.5 hours old instead of 3 hours old or 3.5 hours old. To me, that improves my fan experience. Especially, I'm a Seattle Mariners fan. I watch West Coast games. Those suckers ending at 11:30 my time is a heck of a lot better than ending at 12:15 my time. So I'm all for the pitch clock. The other ones, I'm a little torn on the shift. I kind of, like why can't teams put their defenders where they see is best? Like if I want to put 9 guys on the infield, let me put 9 guys on the infield. And if you can't hit it over the infield, then that's your problem. So I don't necessarily understand that one. Um, the one I hate is the Ghost Runner. I know it's been around for a couple years, but now that it's permanent, like I'll never get used to that. So I
Yeah,
guess
that's
I'm kind of,
whack. That's so
yeah,
whack.
the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I know you and Jim have talked a lot about that on Bayou Bets about I don't like the Ghost Runner. I don't think anyone does. I don't know why that's a thing. I know why it's a thing. It's trying to speed things up, but it's like, man, it's just a cheap way to do things. And
And
he's
see that the Tomcat says here, I disagree. Baseball is still the second most popular sport in the United States. Like, yes, the NFL has passed it. It still has more viewership than any other sport. Like, it's not that people
NBA
aren't interested.
just is right there with
I,
it.
yeah, but I mean, I don't understand this. Like, oh, hey, now the pitch. I will say, at some point, you can't have 4 hour games and 5 hour games. Like the pitch clock was necessary. I'm all for that one. But does the
Hmm.
Ghost Runner really get more people interested?
Yeah,
Really? Are you
no,
you tuning
no.
in just for the 10th inning because there's a guy on second base now? I don't think so. I don't buy that.
No, and then a quick thought here from on Jerry's comment. I'm happy too about Winston staying as a backup because I thought for sure he was gonna leave to try to go start somewhere. So yeah, I'm more than happy that for the Saints to keep him as a backup because he's one of the say upper echelon backups for sure.
No doubt.
And so yeah, let's start it off here with outfielders because we talked a lot of hitters last week. We went over all 4 infield spots as well as catchers. We had catchers too last week. So I'll start off here, drop my initial outfield rankings. Only did 8. I got the full ranking series up on bet.nola.com. Did my top 40 plus breakouts, busts, and sleepers. Just to get things started here, Ronald Acuna got him at the top, although it was very, very tight there between him, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and one of Zach's Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, the young phenom there. And then 5 through 8, a lot of studs as well. Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts, which we're getting there, 2020 guys, and then a couple of big boppers there, 40 plus homer kind of guys with Jordan Alvarez and Mike Trout, who, if he could stay healthy, still elite. I feel like it's crazy to think Mike Trout's getting slept on, but he's not getting drafted in the first round like he used to be. So a lot of star power at the top, and no real consensus number one. I've seen drafts where Acuna goes, Judge, Soto, Julio. They're all right, nip and tuck there. So to me, the biggest question for this outfield list is just simply who's number one. That's hard to say.
Yeah, partly that depends on your league rules, right? Like if you're in a traditional 5 by 5, Um, Maybe you go with a Judge who's going to hit a ton of homers and get RBIs and score some runs, or Julio's going to steal some bases. Um, if you're in the league with on base percentage, like Juan Soto to me goes to the top because that guy gets on base like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
My take here, I don't mind most of these guys at number one. I wouldn't take Judge number one if I had the choice, and that's simply because I feel like you couldn't possibly be buying higher on a guy. Like he hit 62 homers last year. Do we really think he's going to approach that again? If you look at Caesar Sportsbook, our partner Spencer, like his his home run total is 46 and a half for this year. So he's going to go, and maybe you think he hits 50, you think he goes over that total, but you're still like, I wouldn't pay for 60 homers when that's a once in a generation season. Are we really going to see that again? He's not going to contribute a ton in the way of steals. I know he gets a few, but I don't know that I'm going to buy Aaron Judge that high. I'd rather go with one of the other guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially if you're doing 5x5 rotisserie because Judge steals a few bases here and there, but I'd say the others have more stolen base upside for sure. And then to me, I'm going with Acuna because I know Acuna's power was a little down last year, but I think that had something to do with him coming off a torn ACL. And I'm thinking that he'll be healthier this year and be ready to get back to because before the injury, I mean, he was a guy that was hitting close to 40 bombs and over 30 steals. And Soto's another one that's more of a with his bat as opposed to his legs. Julio might have the most upside. He is still a little young, though, as great as he was. He might face a few bumps in the road here and there where Acuna is like I mean, he's at a prime age to be number one, I'd say. So I know you watch
Yeah,
a lot of
I agree
Mariners
with that.
games. So where like you think Julio, like as a sophomore, you think he might experience a little slump, or do you think he's just going to continue to get better?
Yeah, I mean, it's always possible. I'll say I've been super impressed by his maturity. He started out very slowly last year. Um, his April was not good. In fact, a lot of people you could get him on the waiver wire at the end of April in some leagues. Some people were dropping him, um, and then he kind of showed off some more plate discipline, caught fire, showed what he really was, won the Rookie of the Year. To me, I don't know that there'll be a slump necessarily. I do think he stole 25 bases last year, but 20 of those were in the first 3 months of the season. And then he stopped running, partially because he had a little hand injury that they were afraid of worsening by sliding in, to second base, getting a tag down, having the ball hit it, possibly something like that. So he wasn't running as much at the end of the year. I think of these four, Julio is maybe has the highest upside, but also has the most risk factor.
Yeah, for sure. Which is why I had him four of of these four because yeah, he's probably the riskiest. But you never know if he takes that step forward, could end up even better. And that's another question from Tomcat here. You guys do roto or head to head? I usually do the one I like to do head to head roto. So it's like you use the 5x5 categories, but you still play someone each week. That's my go-to scoring
Yeah,
system.
that's what I do, and then I actually have one league um, that's full season roto and head to head roto, and your final standings is determined by half of each, which is very confusing. But it's a very confusing league. It's been around for like 30 years, so a lot of this stuff's grandfathered in since I was, long before I was in the league. So it's fun.
I gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I do a little bit of everything, and I don't know. To me, Spencer, it's not a good year to have the number one pick. I don't think it is because I don't think there is a bona fide number one stud. I'd rather pick fourth or fifth and either get whoever's left out of these guys or take a Trey Turner or and then
Yeah,
turn around and get
Otani.
my
Otani's
yeah
still in the
or
mix.
Otani and get my second pick sooner than being forced to choose among these four and having to wait until pick number 24 to pick again.
Right, right. Yeah, because I mean, you can make a case for Otani, but it's one of those things to where if it's ESPN, you get him as a hitter and a pitcher, but the only issue with that is when he pitches, you don't get credit for his hitting. So if he happens to go 4 for 4 with 2 bombs on the day he's pitching, well, you only get credit for his pitching. So that's the if it wasn't for that, I'd say, well, it's clear and obvious Otani number one, but with the stipulations there, it makes it to where it's kind of tough to decide.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I usually do ESPN Tomcat. I know Yahoo's pretty good too. So, but yeah, before we move on to starting pitchers, I'd like to shout out our sponsor and partner, Caesar Sportsbook. Forgot to do that earlier. I'm gonna make sure to shout them out right now. First bet on us, get up to $12.50 back as a free bet. If you don't win, you use our promo code NOLA full. And we've also got our LSU poster giveaway. Go to lsuposter.com, bet $10 and receive a commemorative poster set with our, through Caesars. So new users only. Make sure to take advantage of that if you haven't already. So moving on here to starting pitchers, we've got, let's see if I can find them. Here we go. Our top 8 here. Corbin Burns tops the charts here for the Brewers, followed by Garrett Cole, Sandy Alcantara, and Aaron Nola, all proven studs there. And then we've got some younger guys as well. I mean, these all studs, but some of them don't have quite the resumes. Shane McClanahan, Brandon Woodruff, Spencer Strider all have elite upside, but still on the younger side. And we've got a seasoned vet there at number 8 in Justin Verlander, one of the greatest starting pitchers of all time. I don't think anyone can argue with that. So, with that being said, I mean, we know those guys are going to produce. Well, I guess before we get posed the question, Zach, what were your thoughts on the top 8 there? Do you think I should add more vets up there? Was I kind of sleeping on Verlander, or was it or is it or is this just the new age where guys like McClanahan and Burns, Woodruff, it's their time now?
Yeah, I'm okay with the rankings. I'm a little bit. I'm always gun shy to take a pitcher in the first round. I'm one of those guys. I'll let somebody else take some of the very top pitchers because they're so volatile, right? Like it's is Sandy Alcantara going to stay healthy all year? Like a big part of Sandy Alcantara's game is the fact that he threw a bunch more innings than anybody else, and so you're getting those counting stats, and they were effective
Mm-hmm.
innings. But you're getting more wins, you're getting more strikeouts from the guy, and you're still not hurting your ratio. And so like, I don't know if I would take him that early because all of a sudden he has some minor injury at some point or something, and his value goes way down because it's in so much in the counting stats. And then Corbin Burns kind of the opposite problem, right? Like he doesn't throw a ton of innings. So, I'm more of the type of guy who I'll sit back and let other people soak up those top pitchers. And then, last year I'm getting Alek Manoah, I'm getting Dylan Cease, and I'm getting Carlos Rodon, who I know is hurt this year, but like he was a good pick last year. And you're kind of soaking up that second tier of starting pitcher, and they tend to just have as much upside as the top guys, but you're not paying as steep a price for them.
100%, which is a perfect segue into the biggest question here, because to me, that's usually the way to go. Don't take starters too high since they tend to be so volatile. To where, to me, you gotta try to find those breakout guys like the way Manoah and Cease were last season. So I guess to me, I mean, which starter, probably multiple, which starters be the top breakout candidates, and then right along with that, who's going to bust. I guess I'll start with breakout candidates. To me, one to watch who's Framber Valdez is the name that's getting a lot of the attention in Houston, but Christian Javier put up sneaky good numbers last year. As a guy, they weren't really comfortable making a starter as kind of like a long reliever because they had so much pitching depth. But last year, they just turned him loose, and he strikes out batters at an elite clip. If he can pitch a full season's worth of innings, he's really on the way up, I'd say. And then also Logan Webb with the Giants. We all know how pitcher friendly it is in San Francisco. And Logan Webb's a guy, he's put together back-to-back solid seasons that I think could be on his way to becoming a fantasy ace. So any
Yeah, I
breakouts you
like all of
got?
those. Yeah, and I'll second your opinion on those Houston starters, Framber Valdez and Javier both, because I think with Justin Verlander out of town, with Lance McCullers hurt, some of those guys were on, I don't want to say innings limits, but you could tell they were kind of treating them with kid gloves, and they were getting 5 innings
Right.
a start instead of 6 or 7. I think that changes this year. They're a year older, and they don't have the rotational depth that they did last year without Verlander, and for as long as McCullers is going to be out. So I do think those guys could end up being even better than they were last year or close to it. So they're worth a look. I'll throw out two other names. One is from my Mariners, George Kirby. Don't think he's getting drafted high enough. The guy's phenomenal. He doesn't walk anybody. He still keeps that strikeout rate high. And if you can do that, boy, I tell you, you can have success in the majors. He's balls are being put in play, but he plays in a pitcher's ballpark in Seattle. He's got a good defense behind him, so a lot of those balls are turning into outs. Home run rate might be a little bit high, but for where you can get George Kirby, I think he's a guy who the Mariners showed they're willing to give him innings at a young age, and he could be a standout. And then the other one is Dustin May, Spencer, coming back from Tommy John surgery for the Dodgers, but the guy's got ace level stuff, and you can get him real low in a draft to where, look, if he's not fully healthy, and he's not effective or he's not pitching very many innings, he's not a guy who's going to cost you a ton if you hold on to him for April, decide it's not going to work out, and you just drop him. But he has that potential to break out.
100%. Yeah, because the Dodgers, they need someone to break out. And Tony Gonsolin's already hurt. We know Clayton Kershaw gets hurt every year. Syndergaard's not reliable. They don't really have any reliable pitching. Like, they not nearly as much as they did. Walker Bueller's on the mend. Really, it's crazy to say this, their only super reliable arm is Julio Urias. So now that I'm thinking about it, they're not going to be able to handle May with kid gloves to where he's gonna pitch, and if his stuff's working, then yeah, he should be a very good breakout candidate. I like that one. And as far as busts, I'll just come out and say it: Jacob DeGrom. It's just he's
Already
ranked
missing time, right?
way too high, way too high. I mean, I could have done my rant about that. I mean, on Fantasy Pros, he's ranked number 4 overall among starting pitchers. Last I checked, that is insane. Y'all do not trust this guy. He signed with the Rangers, so he's going from the Mets to the Rangers. That's not a good move. We know the Rangers. That's a hitter's park. Pitchers don't tend to fare well out there. They've tried year after year. They sign all these pitchers every offseason. This year, they're all right. Well, we're going to sign the very best, the cream of the crop, Jacob DeGrom. But are things going to change? I mean, he'll still be effective when he's out there, but the reason why I don't see it panning out is because of his injury history. He's always injured, and at least when he is with the Mets, you're like, well, I'll take him even if he only throws 120 innings. I'm getting a 1 point something ERA. Or if he goes to the he is with the Rangers. With the Rangers, I don't see his ERA being much below 250. It might even be above 3 because that's just that. And that division's tough. You got the Astros, the Angels, the Mariners. To me, DeGrom is just, he's going to bust at his current average draft position.
I'll throw out Verlander and Scherzer.
Ooh.
I don't know if they're going to bust necessarily, but like Father Time's undefeated, y'all. I mean, we saw
Yeah,
with
they're
Tom
getting
Brady
up
in
there.
football
They're
this
almost
fall.
40. I
You
think Verlander is
Sooner
40
or
now.
later, these guys, and we say it every year with Brady in football, right? Or we did. Like, hey, this could be the year that he falls off a cliff. I wouldn't draft him too high, and then people go and draft him real high, and it wound up okay. I, maybe Scherzer and Verlander will be okay. My guess is at least one of them is going to miss significant time. They're just starting pitchers don't last into their 40s and stay effective. It's unheard of. These guys are already breaking the mold to a certain extent. So if it's me, I'm not pushing that any further than I have to.
100%. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, I would still draft them, but yeah, their ADPs are pretty high, not quite as high as DeGrom. But yeah, I can see kind of treading lightly with those veteran starters. So moving on here to relief pitchers, you got closers. Always want to have a closer or two on your team that's effective. But if you want any of these guys, though, you're gonna have to pay up. We've got Edwin Diaz at the top, followed by Emmanuel Clase, Devin Williams, Jordan Romano, Josh Hader, Ryan Presley, Ryan Helsley, and Raisel Iglesias, all guys that are capable of getting 30 plus saves, I'd say. But the thing with relievers, though, is, I mean, and just our closers, I mean, when you want to draft closers, I mean, you can take 1 or 2 middle relievers, but you want at least 2 or 3 closers, ideally, guys that are going to rack up saves for those that play in 5x5. If you have a reliever, you need him to get saves for him to be worth it. But to me, the question is, I mean, how early should these elite closers like Edwin Diaz be drafted? Because I see him going higher and higher.
To me, it depends a little bit on your strategy, right? Like if you're going to be one of those Okay, Tom. Yeah, Roger Clemens might have had a little
Yeah,
artificial
Randy
help.
Johnson. Yeah.
He might have had a little bit of artificial help to continue that. And yeah, Randy Johnson made it. He was lying on the dugout bench to rest his back in between innings, and like I mean, if you look at his stats once he turned, I think he had one good year right when he turned 40 in Arizona, and then he really kind of dropped off. So
Yeah, it's
is it
tough.
possible again? Yeah, but I don't know. Um, Look, if I'm drafting a team in a 5 by 5 league, I think there is a viable strategy if you don't have a high innings minimum and you don't have like actual starting pitcher spots to fill. If it's just pitchers, there's a viable strategy to draft 6 closers, maybe even 7 or 8 closers, and no starters. And as long as the innings limit's not too high, you're going to win saves every week, and you're probably going to win ERA and WHIP every week. And then you just kind of punt on wins. And K's, honestly, with the way starters go today, only going 4 or 5 innings, you have a chance. I mean, so I think there is a strategy to do that. And if you're going to do that, you need to be very aggressive. You're going to have to start drafting them very early. But if you're not doing that, I don't know that I would do that. I mean, look at some of the breakout guys from last year's closer market, like Camilo Doval in San Francisco. He wasn't even the closer on opening day, and so he was drafted real late. Some of the top closers at the end of the year ended up being not, like Andres Munoz in Seattle. He wasn't the closer, but he was getting saves at the end of the year. He wasn't even on anybody's radar. He wasn't even in the big leagues at the beginning of the year. So
Yep,
if
same
you're
with
just
Helsley with the
yeah,
Cardinals.
exactly. Yeah, if you're just trying um, to get a couple of closers in there, I'm not wasting a top, unless everybody else has the same strategy and I can get an Edwin Diaz outside the top 10 rounds. Like I'm not going to mess with that.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I agree. I definitely I try to wait on closers and just try to stack them up late. I'm not going to be the guy that drafts as good as Diaz and Clase are. They're nasty as Tomcat pointed out, but I'm not spending that third, fourth round pick on those guys. Let someone else do it. Says I'm going to keep stacking my lineup and then let pitching. I tend to wait on pitching because it's just not as reliable. Arm injuries are just unfortunate, but they're more common than injuries to hitters.
The two stats in a 5 by 5 league that predict winners in fantasy baseball the most are runs scored and strikeouts. And so closers, like, yeah, they're going to get strikeouts, but these guys are only pitching in save situations. If you're not taking a closer instead of taking a guy who's going to be an everyday starter in your lineup, or a starting pitcher who's going to rack up Ks every 5 days, like I think you're misguided in doing that. Unless, like I said, your strategy is I'm going to try to win pitching 3-2 every single week, by racking up on closers and trying to get saves, ERA, and WHIP. And I've done that before in leagues that don't have a high innings limit, and it's worked. But it can be difficult to pull off, and you have to be aggressive in the draft.
Yes, indeed. Oh, all right, Zach. I know we're up against the clock, but you ready to rant?
I am ready, man.
Cool,
I'm
cool,
always ready to rant.
cool, cool. Yeah, our new "Let Me Sound Off" segment here. So we'll let Zach go first here because I know he's got a little rant for you fantasy players, and this could go for all leagues. Just about
Yeah,
the just. I'll let you have the floor here. Don't be
this
that
is
guy.
yeah, this is not just baseball, right? This is football, basketball, any fantasy league. Like, don't be the guy or gal who sends these trade offers that you're just hoping to pull one over on somebody. Number one, even if you do it, all you're doing is lessening the enjoyment of another owner, and you're like, it's this win at all costs. Like, we're all trying to win. Look, but this is supposed to be fun, and if you pull one over on somebody, you are actively hurting their experience. Number one. Number two, it like for other owners who aren't going to accept, which is the majority of us, it's just insulting. It's like I don't even want to talk trade with you if you're gonna ask for my best player and you're offering 3 waiver wire fodder guys in return. Like I'm not even going to send a counter offer. I don't want to do that. Don't be the guy who sits there and thinks you're smarter than everybody else in the room and is trying to say, "Oh, well, look, this guy had a good week last week. He hit 3 homers. He's on the come up. How about Mike Trout for him?" Get out of here. I don't like you. I'm exaggerating, okay? But this is not something that
Oh, I've seen it before.
yeah, this is not something that helps fantasy baseball leagues or fantasy football leagues. When you're trying to tell me that the Lions' backup running back is worth Saquon Barkley because of last week. Like, it insults my intelligence. It makes me less likely to trade with you. And even if you are able to pull one over, like it's borderline cheating. Okay, so don't send a trade offer that you don't think is fair for both teams. The ideal trade improves both teams. It improves your team, but you got to give something up to get something, and you're probably helping the other team out too. Maybe one of you is buying on speculation, and the other one is getting the sure thing. Fine, be willing to take that risk if that's the case. But don't try to pull one over on somebody.
Yeah, for sure. I could understand, the first offer making it, not super juicy, because when you negotiate, you want to have a little back and
That's right.
forth. But yeah, don't make it, because if you make it so insulting, as what you're saying, Zach, it's going to be to where they're just going to reject it, and you're not going to be able to trade with them because they're like, well, I'm not trading with this idiot. I mean, he doesn't know how to value players. He doesn't respect my players. So that's what I tend to do. If someone sends me something really whack, I'm just declining. I don't even waste my time sending a counter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't start with your highest offer. I mean, that's just bad negotiating. But you also don't want to send something that's just laughable.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have a balance there. You gotta have a balance. And so to cap it off here, I got a rant too. I gotta go be football related, because I just looking at these free agency deals, most of them make sense, the team signing offensive linemen, linebackers, edge rushers, wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, positions that you need, positions that really make a difference on a high percentage of the downs. The positions that I don't see many teams worrying about on days 1 and 2 in free agency are special teams positions like kicker and punter. And if they do, they're just super cheap 1-year contracts. But the Indianapolis Colts did not get this memo apparently because they not only signed the new kicker, Matt Gay, but they signed him to a record contract, a record free agent contract for a freaking kicker. I know he's one of the best kickers, but come on, Colts, what are y'all doing? And you look at their roster, they have needs all throughout on both sides of the ball, specifically quarterback. Huge hole at quarterback. I mean, all they've got is Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, and Sam Ehlinger, all technically still on the roster, but probably going to move on from at least 2, maybe all 3 of those guys, because we know they're going to draft somebody at pick 4, but it's like, man, y'all really worrying about a kicker? Y'all have a lot more important things to worry about. I mean, if I were them, I would be trying to bring in a veteran, somebody that could mentor that rookie, scan the backup QB market, try to get somebody. Because, I mean, those guys are getting picked off. I mean, like Mike White signed, Taylor Heineke, Case Keenum. I mean, those are guys that Colts could have been prioritizing, but nope. They decided to give a record contract to a kicker.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw because this just happened right when we started the show, but they traded Stephon Gilmore to the Cowboys too. So, um, I is that setting up for a tank job in Indy? Like, I'm not totally. We'll see what the rest of their offseason looks like, but
Man,
it's
what
pretty
do they
funny right
do?
now.
Yeah, I mean, they got the new coach, Shane Steichen, where it's like, whew, I don't know, man. I know they didn't get number 1 pick, and they're not going to get it because Carolina now acquired it. So they're not going to get Stroud or Young, probably. Might have to settle for Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. So, yeah, they might. Shoot, it might be. Kind of like the Bears this year. Yeah, they had Justin Fields, a young quarterback, but we're still bad. So, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, though. I mean, like Jim said the other day on Bayou Bets, it's silly for teams to want to be tanking already. It's like, come on, man. You got to at least try to put a decent product together, I feel like.
You play to win the game.
100%. And appreciate you tuning in, Tomcat. Nice show, guys. Yep, appreciate you. And all the other listeners, Jerry and everybody that tuned in, really appreciate y'all. And I think that's going to do it here for the fantasy roundup, unless you have any final thoughts, Zach.
I'm good, man. I'm excited about baseball. Come back in a few weeks and let you know how all those drafts went.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I know Gabe Henderson, normally our co-host, but appreciate the main captain of Bayou Bet, Zach. For tuning in. We'll have to do some 3-person panels for sure, and maybe have some with Jim Derry on too. Get his crazy Cubs takes. But that's gonna do it for this one, y'all. Appreciate everyone that tuned in here to the Fantasy Roundup. We'll be back next Tuesday at 4 p.m. on these same channels, y'all. Take care.